From a highly secure network of top secret locations across North America, this is the Spurs Insider, Ethical Tank Edition. I'm your host, Mike Finger, joined as always by our panel of Express News Spurs beat writers, Tom Orsborn and Jeff McDonald, along with sports editor Nick Talbot. Like the team we cover, we may not end up prevailing at the end of this podcast, but in the ethical tank, we're all going to give a sincere effort, Jeff McDonald included. Tom's checking in bright and early from his secure location on the West Coast, where he saw the local Cagers give another honest effort. Tom, they're not folding, but they are not winning either. What's the latest from the Spurs in Southern California?
Local Cagers got off to a rough start, fell behind by 28 points eventually. But Spurs coach Greg Popovich used to say many times, there was reasons to be proud of them because they battled back. They pulled within 11 in the fourth before Luka Doncic did his thing and Austin Reeves did his thing. And the Lakers pulled away for a 125-109 win. Notable in that game was Stephon Castle. Started out with 3 fouls about midway through the first quarter. 2 of the calls were questionable, but he bounced back, showed his mental toughness, had 23 points, 8 boards, 3 assists.
And when we're talking about the ethical tank, Jeff McDonald, we're talking about, as we mentioned on this podcast in seasons past, where we've gone through Marches and Februaries and Aprils like this. The roster, the team, the players aren't the ones tanking. You still have Stephon Castle, as Tom mentioned, trying to get something out of this last month. You still have Devin Vassell's come along a little bit over the last couple of games. The losses are going to take care of themselves. The draft positioning is going to take care of itself, but there's still some competition to be had.
Yeah, it's tough to watch.
Yeah,
everybody's trying hard, but a lot of the juice went out. I don't want to be this guy today, but I guess I am. A lot of the juice went out of the season when Victor was announced out for the year. And then, you still had De'Aaron Fox to kind of watch for a while and see how he transitions. Now he's out for the rest of the year. Really, all that's left is, Steph Castle's Rookie of the Year chase, and he's probably going to win it. Was probably the front runner anyway, and then he's elevated to the starting lineup where he's going to get a lot of opportunity and a lot of minutes to compile these sort of counting stats that will probably bring that award over the top for him. So, to me, that's kind of what is worth watching as the Spurs kind of really play out the string here. But it leads to some very rough moments. Losing to that Dallas team last week that was just decimated. They're not going to have much of a chance against teams that are playoff ready and playoff caliber.
How did you enjoy that Charlotte game last Friday?
And the Charlotte game where they gave up a franchise record 26 3-pointers to a team that was one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league coming in.
It's hard to do. To an all-time NBA record too, right?
Pretty close. Yeah. If it wasn't for that fourth quarter defense, the Spurs pulled out in that loss where they gave up 140 points. Charlotte might have broke the NBA record too. And again, it's not like Charlotte is some 3-point shooting powerhouse. They were 28th in the league in percentage coming in, and just shot the lights out of the Frost Bank Center. So the Spurs are gonna, because they can't play defense. Since Victor's gone, they have no shot at playing defense. No size, nobody around the rim to scare anybody. Just opens up everything for every other team. So they're going to struggle against the good. They're going to have almost no shot against most of the good teams that can take advantage of that, and it's going to turn the games against the bad teams even into a crapshoot. So that's where you are win-loss wise going down the stretch. But if you guys want to find silver linings or stuff to watch, stuff to look at, that's fine too. That's kind of what we're here for.
Tom, Tom got an entertaining little little fracas in Los Angeles last night, and I was shocked to find out who was involved in that.
Tom got in a fracas? Was it with Billy Zabka?
It might have been. But during the game you had and that was, man, it can be hard with Mr. Sohan sometimes. He's entertaining. But that was from both ways. That was some silliness, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I like how Mitch Johnson characterized it after the game. A little bump by Vanderbilt, and then some macho stuff, he said, by both players. And but it was funny because Jeremy grinned the whole time, after he's
Of course, that's what he does.
Yeah, I know. It's funny though. It's great to see the fans react to it. It's pro wrestling stuff. Nick Talbot, you can weigh in on this. Jeremy would be a good villain, I guess. And but yeah, the crowd serenaded him with booze as he went off the floor to the locker room, grinning from ear to ear.
I believe they would call him a heel. They would call him a heel in wrestling.
In wrestling, that is correct. But what would he be? Would he be the Joker with that bright hair? Is that the most comparable person we have?
I haven't watched wrestling since the days of Jose Lothario, but
yeah, well, I wish we could have more feedback here to your suggestions, Nick, but I think you're on your own there. We'll take your word for it.
We can call him New John Cena. We'll be very timely. John Cena's a bad guy now. That's making us timely.
The actor John Cena is also a wrestler?
That is correct, yes.
Next you're going to tell me that The Rock was also a wrestler.
Also a wrestler.
Oh my gosh.
And that Dave Bautista guy from Guardians of the Galaxy.
What? That little skinny guy was a wrestler?
Correct.
I did
learn something new every day.
Although I haven't watched wrestling since the days of Jose Lothario, San Antonio legend, I did meet Andre the Giant once, when I was about 18 years old. And yeah.
Might as well tell the story. We're not going to be breaking down like the Julian Champagne's shot selection on this episode. So you might as well tell us how you met Andre the Giant.
Well, I went to I was moving out of the house, moving out of the Orsborn abode at 351 Waxwood. And me and a buddy and my brother and my young nephew at the time, we went to this hotel that was, that was giving some furniture away. So we went there to give me some furniture. And Andre the Giant was there.
Just for the kids who are listening, because this is such a moment in time that many of our young listeners have no idea how you would have found out in those days. Oh, those many decades ago, that there was a hotel giving furniture away and that you could pick it up. How did you find that out?
My dad tipped me off to it. He worked. My dad was a barber. He got out of the military for a long time, and he was next to this hotel. I think, just shooting the bull with the hotel employees. They told him, "Hey, we got some furniture. You're kicking your son out of the house, and we got some furniture for him." So, but that's another.
Awesome.
But anyway, we go in the lobby early in the morning, and it was the night. It was the day that Texas and Georgia played in the Cotton Bowl. I think it was 1983.
Many, many years ago. Yes.
Many, many years ago. Yeah. So Andre the Giant's there in the lobby, and I went up to him. Went up to him. And I said, "How did you do last night?" Because he had a card here in San Antonio, and his head, which was as big as my torso, he had his head down, maybe a cup of coffee. He was, blurry-eyed early in the morning. He raises his head up ever so slowly, looks me in the eye, and he said, "You should have come." In other words, I'm not going to give you anything about this great card that you missed. You should have come. Well, I kind of chuckled over it. But my young nephew, broke out in tears. He was so scared of this enormous enormous man who basically told his uncle to go to hell. So,
But hold on. So you met Andre the Giant, the actor from The Princess Bride?
I was thinking
yeah,
it's my favorite movie of all time.
yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah,
He was sitting down, apparently. You said he looked up at you. He was sitting down in a chair.
but his head was as big as my torso.
Did you address him as Andre or Mr. the Giant?
Oh, I think I said, "Hey, Andre," or something. How did you do last night? He said, "You should have come."
Even folks, this is why you listen to this
right.
podcast. Even at the age of 18, when Tom Orsborn is getting kicked out of his house, and he sees a superstar, one of the biggest celebrities, literally one of the biggest, the biggest celebrity in the country, size-wise. His first instinct is not to ask for an autograph, is not to be a fawning admirer. It's to get information.
Exactly.
It's to report.
Yeah.
It's to find out what happened. Tom Orsborn just has the natural instincts of a sports reporter, and that was true even when he met Andre the Giant those many years ago. That's a great story.
Before I started taking journalism courses at San Antonio College, so yeah, I've thought about that, Mike. You're very astute. Yes,
I am astute. Thank you for pointing that out. Do we want to talk more about the Spurs?
You have many others,
really,
too, but astute is one of them.
We did tell everyone on this podcast a week ago. It's technically the news has broken since then, but Tom Orsborn, natural-born sports reporter, natural-born newsbreaker, had told everyone on this podcast that by the time we taped our next podcast, De'Aaron Fox probably wasn't going to be playing again. But we do need to review that because Tom was out ahead of it, saying that De'Aaron's probably going to get this surgery done when the Spurs go to Los Angeles. That turned out to be the case. He ended up calling it a season a few games before then. But that seems to be, fellas, the obvious correct move for De'Aaron Fox to make. As much as the Spurs would like to see him play a little more down the stretch, might as well get it out of the way now, right?
I think it was mostly to give him a full off season.
Yeah.
Like, I think technically he could have finished this season. I think they said it was a 12-week recovery. So he technically could have finished the season and been cleared to start training camp. But I think they found the off season part to be something to prioritize. Like, they want him to, as soon as the team kind of reconvenes informally in June, they want him to be ready to go to do the open gyms and the workouts and kind of gain chemistry that way. And so it was a matter of just getting it done so he could be done in time for that. And the games don't matter down the stretch, as we've already covered on this podcast. So
other health related housekeeping issues to take care of this week. Tom, again, natural-born reporter, noted at a shoot-around last week that young Victor Wembanyama was riding the stationary bike, and that apparently is part of something that he is allowed to do, which is honestly pretty. I think that's encouraging just to hear that he's able to do some physical stuff. And it's not basketball, and it's probably not super intense, but the fact that they're comfortable letting him ride the bike, that's probably good news, isn't it?
Yeah, he's doing weights too, Mitch said, and some other conditioning work. So he's going at it pretty well. De'Aaron Fox will be able to do quite a bit after he's probably just out of surgery as we speak here in Los Angeles. And he's a little
not at the hospital.
Yeah, he was a little bit nervous going into it, I think. First surgery ever. I was told he was a little nervous about it. But
I've thought about that before, just when just as sports writers, as people like the listeners out there who follow sports all the time, and you hear about these minor surgeries that these guys have, and you kind of don't give it a second thought because guys go through them all the time. But if ever in your life, as a listener out there, me as a Tom, as somebody who has to go for any procedure at all, like if they're going to put you under for something, that's got to be. I mean, that's a huge thing. You're clearly nervous about it. You're clearly like people ask all the time, like why don't these guys have these surgeries and get them out of the way? Like people don't like. Understandably, people don't like having surgery. That's a huge thing.
Right. And
I think we tend to overlook that sometimes.
You mentioned going under, and I think that from what I was told, that was the nervous part of it. Never had it. Yeah.
Oh man, he's gonna love it. It's the best.
Yeah. You're Jeff. You're right. I've had a couple of surgeries and another procedure. And yeah, you come out of it, and it's like, man, can I go back? That was the best sleep I've had in a long time.
You know, there's all this talk out there on the internet about how much we dislike each other on this podcast. But I got to admit, one member of this podcast picked me up from one of the. Is that the only surgery I've ever had where I've been under? It might be. It wasn't a surgery; it was a procedure, which men of a certain age or people of a certain age undergo. But that was very nice.
Another person on this podcast, encouraged you to do that too.
That's true. That's true.
So we look out.
That's all we're going to mention about that procedure. But I would, it's a thing that people should do. It's a responsible thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
the best part is when you found out that guy wasn't even a doctor.
Why are we tiptoeing around it? It's a good thing to do. Get your colon checked. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, now everyone understands.
Yeah.
Yeah, go do that.
And good thing for all our listeners, please do it. When you reach a certain age, get it done. Might save your life.
Stuff that you've learned on this Spurs podcast this week, we're going to vault to the top of the charts of the sports NBA podcast because of talking about Andre the Giant in 1980 in a hotel. Which hotel was it downtown, Tom?
No, it wasn't downtown. It was off of Loop 410 near the Magic Time Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's that story and there's colonoscopy talk. And this is going to get us to the top. That's where we're like some NBA podcasts break down like 3-point percentage and new plays that teams are running. That's not what we do here on the Spurs Insider.
This whole podcast is a colonoscopy.
It's like something that everyone should experience.
I think our readers and listeners don't have to get a colonoscopy now because they're getting one right now.
Well, that's great to follow absolute wrong message.
The fears about it. Yeah, the fears about it are ridiculous. Get it done. Yeah.
Also, Tom will drive you. Any listener that wants to go, Tom will drive you when he gets home from LA.
Just like he drives the French reporters who visit. Tom's full service San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Very, very, very good citizen. I cannot believe I can't come up with a segue back to basketball, but I'm struggling here.
Well, speaking of colonoscopies, the Spurs play again tomorrow.
Well, we mentioned
they don't even get to be sedated for that.
There you go. Tom's trying here. Tom's trying.
You mentioned Devin Vassell, and he is playing well, and it's more than just a couple of games. It's been about a 2-week stretch now. I think last night was his 10th consecutive double-digit game, and consistency has been an issue with him, and he's scoring pretty consistently. Had some really, really good 20-point games in there. Had a career high, 37, I believe. So yeah, I mean
and those are good. To be the Jeff McDonald here, the 10 consecutive double digits. Like this is the issue with Devin Vassell is what standard are we holding him to? Like that. Right. That's a guy who the double-digit scoring should be a kind of a yawn, like a so what type of thing in some fans' minds. Like, is that really a mark of progress for him? And that's the quandary of Devin Vassell is what do you want him to be? Jeff has pointed out many times on this podcast that if your expectations for him are to be a solid, reliable, like number 4 on a playoff team, then he's becoming that. I think that you're comfortable having him calling him that. Moving up to a third option, like that's where it gets kind of iffy. What's the situation at the end of this season? He's now being looked to be the scorer, and he's handling that well. The scorer on a bad team that loses most nights, and that's not everybody can do that. And the fact that he's handling that speaks better of him than if he wasn't handling it. But it's still a situation where I'm not sure we know exactly what Devin Vassell is long term. Do we? Maybe we do. Do we know what he is?
When the Spurs have all their players, let's say at the beginning of next year, I would like to see Devin Vassell sort of concentrate on, being a rebounding guard, being active defensively, and then whatever points come out of that is kind of, I don't want to say gravy, but I don't know that. I think in a perfect world, I don't know if he's a guy that you judge on how many points he scores. Yeah,
but I think
knock down some shots, but
the reason he's out there,
knock down some shots, sure. But I think in a perfect world, judging Devin Vassell on a night-to-night basis on how many points he scores is maybe the way they go. Because he's to me, I would like to see him do other things, contribute in other ways, so that his worth is not rising and falling with whether the ball's going in that night.
Yeah, and he is. Mitch pointed out
he's a role player.
He's rebounding. Last night he had 8 boards. He had 8 boards the other night, I think, as well. He's doing other stuff too. Trying really hard to be a well-rounded, all-around player, and I think he's succeeding at that.
I think
who's playing the best basketball of his life?
Jeff's secure location is just driving me crazy here with this.
Hello,
and
I don't know if you can fix your internet connection there, Jeff, but we're barely understanding anything that you're saying. I will go back to the Devin thing of something that he's dealt with in his career, and this has been a challenge, is he's been asked to do so many different things depending on who's been around him.
Yeah,
this is yet another example of that. Like, he goes from these situations where he's being asked to be the go-to scorer because Victor Wembanyama isn't around, because De'Aaron Fox isn't around. This is similar to what he was at the end of a couple of seasons ago when he was kind of the go-to guy. And then when Victor is around, and when De'Aaron Fox is around, and when Chris Paul and Stephon Castle and all these guys are involved, well, then you're asking him to be what Jeff McDonald was just saying that he should be, which is the rebounding guard who it doesn't matter if he scores or not. And I think that is probably a challenge. It seems like it would be, to where you're being asked to do 2 totally different things, sometimes 3 totally different things, depending on who's playing around you. That probably hasn't been the easiest situation to find a role, to embrace a role. So, I think they still see him as a long-term important piece to what they're building. The contract obviously shows that. I think if he could embrace what Jeff was talking about, I think that would be good for them long-term. I just don't know how much the next month or so helps there.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And Mitch Johnson talked about that the other night, about just the different personnel, different, how that affects Devin's game, threw him off a little bit, adjusting to Wemby, and then adjusting to Castle, and then adjusting to Fox. So, it's something to watch as the season goes on, as the season winds down, just to see if he can maintain that consistency, which Mike Finger astutely pointed out is the bugaboo for Devin Vassell.
At the risk of depending too much on the connection in Jeff's secure location, the other thing I wanted to mention this week was one of the most enjoyable things that I saw in the newspaper this week. The newspaper's filled with stuff that isn't enjoyable, but on expressnews.com, the hard copy edition of the San Antonio Express News and the Spurs Nation newsletter, there was a great story about the brilliant, the conniving, the mischievous Sandro Mamukelashvili.
Yes.
And one of the crimes of the century, Jeff, that he pulled off in Frost Bank Center was that last Friday night. And Jeff had a great breakdown of how it all came to pass with comments from mechanics, from accomplices, from people throughout the crime network. Jeff, if you are back online here, break it down for us. How did Sandro pull it off?
Yeah, Tom helped out with that one.
There you go, Jeff.
Tom helped out with that one too. Yeah, it was a interesting night there at Frost Bank Center when Steph Castle got his wheels taken off his car. Let Tom tell the story because he was involved in that as well.
Yeah, the backstory is, we're in, Mike, you were there in Charlotte, right? You were on that trip to Charlotte.
In Charlotte, yeah, that's where Jeremy challenged me to challenge my wardrobe. But go ahead.
We're in the locker room, and De'Aaron Fox comes in, looks at his seat, looks at his locker. There's
yes.
He basically says, "What in the heck is going on with this team? You know, where's my towel? What
with the rookies?
He looks at Chris Paul, says, "What are the rookies doing here? What do they do here?
Yeah.
What kind of an outfit are you running, Chris Paul?" And so the guy who was supposed to put the towels out there was Steph Castle.
Yeah.
And Steph has been lagging in his rookie duties. Rookies have to do things, take care of the vets. Steph's been lagging in that. So Mamu basically kept telling him all season, you got to pick it up, man. You got to pick it up. Pick it up or I'm going to take your tires. Basically threatening him, I'm gonna have your tires removed if you don't get it.
One little interjection I'll make there, because you mentioned that this did come up in the locker room in Charlotte during the rodeo road trip, and when De'Aaron came out and was saying all that stuff, I walked over there to Steph and kind of was like, "What's up with that? Like, is he really mad at you?" And Steph, seriously, he was like, things have changed since he was a rookie. Like rookies don't do that anymore. Steph's attitude was like, no, that's for old people. Like we rookies don't have to do that anymore. Anyway, I think that little line that he said there to me plays into what happens next, because Steph was not taking this serious. He thought it was a joke. But proceed.
Yeah. So Sandro organizes this, and we talk sometimes about the Spurs lacking execution on the court. And can they execute a caper, a prank? And Mamu was the guy in charge. He orchestrated the whole thing. Got his friends at United Collision Car Center, which our Nick Talbot is familiar with, unfortunately. He just orchestrated this prank after the win over Dallas. Elaborate hand signals. Mamu, snuck in, got Steph's car keys at halftime. Then with an elaborate series of hand signals, when it appeared that the Spurs had the game in control and were going to win.
Because you don't want to do this if you lose.
Yeah, exactly. So Sandro signals to his girlfriend behind the bench, who signals to Spurs security, and then she signals to the United Collision Car Center folks. The plan is on. And so that's when they jumped at it, got to the players' parking lot, removed Steph's wheels from his sports car, and jocularity and good times ensued. Steph handled it okay, although I think he initially was a little perturbed by it. But it was
because all the wheels are off his car. His sports car is on the axles in the Spurs parking lot after this game, and all the players follow him up there, videoing this, watching his reaction to having no wheels on his car. And to be clear, like this wasn't just as Tom alluded to, it's not just one player, a mischievous player, Sandro Mamukelashvili, doing that. There needs to be security guards outside Frost Bank Center allowing this collision guy into the parking lot. So all these people have to be roped in and involved to let this mechanic in, auto body guy in, to take these wheels off. That was
Yeah.
That was a fun little story, I thought.
Luis Carrera Jr.,
Uh-huh.
the owner of United Collision Car Center. Yeah, I talked to him, and his great quote was, "Yeah, Sandro organized the crap out of this," and that's basically what happened. Sandro pulled it off. It was one of the best executed moments of the season for the Spurs.
Well, that's a highlight. You find them where you can take them.
I think Steph was good.
We're gonna move on from Jeff here. Sorry, Jeff. You sound like a robot, and you sound AI, and you might have been an AI all along. We're gonna have to move on from you. We don't need any more Jeff McDonald comments on this podcast. We apologize to the listeners for Jeff sounding more useless than usual. He's working hard in all the other areas of his job. He's gonna try harder next week. We'll all try harder next week. Until then, take care of each other and keep it real.